I'm here today to share some of my ideas on getting some paint and ink going on with your Jenni Bowlin products. So I'm going to be featuring some of Jenni's new products, some of her older products, as well as her paints and inks for Ranger. Now let's start. The ink pads are really nice. I really love the colors, and they've got a great feel to them. They're kind of a felt pad versus like a spongy pad, so they work beautifully, they stamp beautifully, and they're pretty straightforward. The same goes for the paint. The thing with the dabber paints that's a lot of fun is it is just acrylic paint, but it's in this handy little dabber, which means that it's got a mechanism in here so that when you squeeze it and you're pressing, paint will just come right out the top onto that foamy applicator, and you can use it all over. You can use it to color your paper. You could use it on stamps, either foam or rubber stamps or acrylic stamps, and you don't have to get out a foam brush. It kind of replaces that, so there's one less thing to clean. Some of the ways I like to use it, I do like to use it to recolor or add color to pattern papers and cardstocks. This is a Jenni Bowlin Coordinations cardstock here that I'm playing with adding green to, and I could add more colors as well. You can also just cover absolutely any paper. It works on cards, scrapbook pages, mixed media projects, whatever you'd like. And you can get some fun circular textures going just because it's got a circle applicator there. So you can get some circle pattern going. You could rub it and get an all over application. And you could go heavy, or because of the way that this foam is, you can go really, it lets you go really, really light, so you can get less opaque. You can get more of just a light coating of color. Now, one of the things you see right here is I've punched with my Jenni Bowlin punch some of this, and I wasn't really meaning it to become a pattern. I was just playing around with it, and I can lay this down on another paper and tap with my dabber, and what I will get is that punch. So you can use it with stencils, or like I've done, use your stamps to, use your punches to make your own stencils and have fun that way. One of Jenni's new products is this stencil lettering guide, and I love this. This will be perfect. You could use this as it is as a whole sheet. You could cut it apart, and you could definitely use either the ink pads or the paints with this to stencil and reuse it many times. You could use it as much as you want. Just make sure if you're using the paints, you just want to let this totally dry. If you were going to stencil something out and then want to use it again, I would just let it totally dry. That way your paints don't mix. Other products that these are great on, they work on stickers. Here you can see one where I took the speckled egg blue and just rubbed it all over that sticker and recolored it. I do love to add color. It lets me customize my projects, and I love how the Jenni Bowlin products, so many of them are neutral, so you can choose what color it is that's right for you to add or what will work for you. Here's the lavender, and you can see this is a brand new one, so you can see it's not colored yet. And all I'm going to do to get it started is press down and at the same time squeeze a little bit. And you can see I've colored a chipboard. Now when that's dry, you can certainly stamp on it and use other layers as well. Now that we've taken a look at a few things, let's go ahead and put together a scrapbook layout. I'm just going to place my 4x6 photo right here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the speckled egg, and I'm going to open it up and dip my paintbrush in here because what I want to do is I want to draw a line. I want to just kind of frame my photo, and I'm just taking that paintbrush and I'll just dip it back in as needed. If I need more, again, I just get in more, and I'm letting it be, it's pretty square, but I'm going to let it have some rough edges because I don't like things to look too perfect, you know? So next, I think I want to use this butterfly foam stamp, and I'm going to put this, let's see, ooh, now I got to decide here. I do love that these are on their own clear plastic thing, so you can really get a good look at what you're doing. And you'll want to press down, just make sure you don't wiggle, and then lift up, oops, And on mine here, I didn't press down in the middle hard enough, so I can just go right back in there. And that's the other great thing about this being clear is I can, if I don't quite get it the way I want it the first time, I can just go right back in there. Okay, and I got a little paint right there, but that's okay too. Now I know I want to use this, read this tag, but I want to give it a little color. So I'm going to take this lemon drop and just scrub it on there a little bit. I love playing, can you tell? And I'm going to put that at the top corner there, so I just need a little bit of dry adhesive on there. I definitely want to use that trick I showed you with using a punch as a stencil, and I'll do 3 of them on this sheet, and this is just a sheet actually it's out of an old Nancy Drew book, and I'm going to do them along this side, and I might mix this. I'm going to do one at a time. Again, you just tap there. I'll let it up, and then I'll repeat depending on where I think I want them. I'll have one. Now you can see there's a couple spots where I've got pink paint that maybe was from elsewhere on here. If you're worried about this, the thing to do would just be to punch more of these and use each one only once so that there is none of that. I actually wanted it. I actually wanted some of the pink to like kind of smudge a little bit, give it a little more of an aged look. And so that's, I'm okay with that. But you'll just want to be aware if you're doing this where you're lifting and setting down, you want to know where you're wet, know where the paint is wet still. I want to make sure it'll fit, so I'm going to do it a little bit onto the photo and the butterfly, and I think it should be fine. And I'm going to use the blue, and again, just the same as I did with the flowers, I'm just tapping this. The reason I'm not rubbing is I don't want it to rub underneath the stencil. I want to hold everything really nice and still and lift straight up. Now this paper is just slightly smaller than 12 by 12. It's like 11 1/4. So I'm going to mount this on this pink piece of pattern paper, older paper by Jenni Bowlin, and you can see it perfectly matches the chewing gum pink. I love that. I love how all her products, the colors coordinate no matter if they're older or brand new. And I'm going to do, my letter S is going to go over onto that. You'll want to let that paint dry, and then once it's dry, you can come in with a pen if you want more contrast, and I think on this one I do. You can come in with a pen and just very lightly, you can use, either you can do a real hard straight line, or me, I'm going to do just kind of very short strokes, just kind of making a scratchy bit of accenting here around these letters just to really help them show up, especially like this G is going on to a portion that's already painted blue, so it's really not going to show up very much. And I'll just go around each of the letters and do this. So now that I've got my journaling on there and my title's all complete, I'm going to add in some of the Jenni Bowlin Ranger Spice Tin ink. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to use a foam blending tool. If you don't have a foam blending tool, a makeup sponge works great for this. Or you could just use the pads straight. I just like a real blended, soft look. So I'm just going around and in a circular motion, just adding on the ink here. Something that I love about using these Dapper paints is that I can use them with just my stickers and my paper, and they add so much to my page without having to add a lot of embellishments or even a lot of dimension to the page. For starters, I'm going to take this brown sugar ink pad and very lightly I'm running it all over this embossed cardstock of Jenni's, my coordinations. Oh, I love what this does because these ink pads are just such a great kind of felt material. They work so fantastically for things like this, real lightly inking. And you can see it brought out that embossed pattern. And I'm currently debating, I really want to see if I can get these two used together. I'm still deciding on the background paper. But now that I have my mat, it's time to get my photos out. And I've got a couple of ideas on what I want to show you, some ink and some paint on this project. I went with the blue polka dot Jenni Bowlin paper instead of the damask for my background because I felt like my photos and everything popped just a little bit better. So now that my pictures are down, we're into the fun stuff. I've put some green acrylic paint here, dabber paint, onto all but 3 of this stamp, this scalloped stamp, and then I'm just going to position it where I want it and just make sure I lightly press all over. And as I lift up, you can't see it because you're above there with your bird's eye view, but as I lift up, I'm just checking to make sure each one got the right amount, that it got enough pressure that it's going to show up. And there we go. Like that. And again, I'm just making sure I press each little triangle and get a nice, good print on there. And then just carefully lift it up. And you I am going to take this little tiny foam brush, and it's round at the tip, but it's little, okay? It's a lot smaller than the applicator that's on the paint. And actually, to do this now, you wouldn't have to mix it with anything. You could just use it straight out of the bottle, but I'm going to just make individual little polka dots with it, with my multi-medium and paint mixture. And again, this actually, what I ended up doing here, you don't actually have to have a paintbrush for this, multi-medium in here. You could use it straight, but it does make it a little thinner. Okay, so it is a little more color wash-like than before. I'm going to use my Spice Tin ink pad to edge my journaling tag here. And I'm just using, I like to go like that, so it's pretty much straight on. That will give you a thinner edge. If you want more, then you'll just want to angle it a little more and you'll get a little more on there, and you can experiment with that. To do for my title here, I am going to take some alphabet letters here, and these are just older Jenni Bowlin letters. And I'm going to place them, and yeah, they're not the perfect match as far as color goes, but I'm going to show you why that's okay. The 2 different things that I can do, I could directly onto the sheet of letter stickers, or I could also pull them off and put them on a sheet of plastic and do this that way. I can color them by just using my paint directly on that sheet and recoloring them that way. Another thing that I can do is do it right onto the page, and if I do this, I'm going to show you in a minute what's going to happen here. The paint is dry. What I noticed when I was doing this is that I wasn't getting quite as much contrast as I wanted. So once the paint is dry, I'm using this brown sugar ink pad, and I'm very lightly tapping it on here, and what's going to end up happening is that the ink is mostly going onto those letters. So now you've got kind of a cool painted background, and the letters themselves have got that great brown color as well. The other way that you could do this, instead of doing what I just did where you're relying on an ink pad to very lightly coat these letters, the other thing you can do after you paint is to use something sharp like an X-Acto knife or paper piercer. I just find that little tool helps pull it up and lift off your letters. And you can see there, now you've got kind of a mask effect around your letters. So you could do that as well. That's actually something I do a lot. It's probably one of the more common things that one of the more common tricks that I use. But I really like how by going very lightly, because those letters are raised, they totally take up that ink, and the ink doesn't really get very much the ink won't get right next to the letters very much because of the raised difference. So I love that look. And I could even go back in and add in another layer of blue paint accenting if I wanted. And once that is all dry, I will also take a pen and outline just for a little further definition.